On a bustling movie set in 1993, the air was filled with the sound of laughter and the chaotic energy of one of the world's most beloved comedians. But behind the prosthetic mask of Mrs. Doubtfire, Robin Williams was carrying a weight that few people could see. While the cameras captured a story about a father's love, a real-life drama was unfolding between takes. Sally Field, his co-star and friend, recently stepped forward to share a memory from those days. A moment that changed how she saw the man behind the jokes. It wasn't a story of comedy, but of a quiet, life-altering kindness that occurred when the world wasn't watching. In the early 1990s, Hollywood was buzzing with a project that seemed almost impossible to pull off. It was a story about a father so desperate to see his children that he transforms himself into an elderly British nanny. This film, Mrs. Doubtfire, required a lead actor who could be both hilariously funny and deeply sincere. There was only one person for the job: Robin Williams. Joining him as his on-screen ex-wife was Sally Field, a two-time Oscar winner known for her incredible emotional range. On the surface, the set was a place of constant joy. Robin was a whirlwind of energy, a man whose mind moved faster than most people could follow. He was famous for his improvisations, often tossing the script aside to create moments of pure, spontaneous comedy that left the crew gasping for air from laughing so hard. Sally Field watched Robin with a mix of awe and curiosity. She saw the immense physical toll the role took on him. To become Mrs. Doubtfire, Robin had to sit in a makeup chair for 4 to 5 hours every single morning, starting long before the sun came up. Layers of heavy latex were glued to his face, making it difficult to breathe and even harder to stay cool under the hot studio lights. Yet, the moment the cameras rolled, the discomfort seemed to vanish. Robin became a beacon of light for everyone on set. He felt a deep, almost spiritual responsibility to keep the energy high and the spirits of the crew lifted. However, Sally began to notice something beneath the surface of the jokes. While Robin was giving everything he had to the world, he seemed to be running on a type of restless fuel. He was a man who couldn't seem to turn off the performer switch, as if he feared that if the laughter stopped, something else might take its place. Sally and Robin developed a professional bond built on mutual respect, but she remained an observer of his frantic genius. She recognized that his brilliance came from a place of extreme sensitivity, a trait they both shared. They were two masters of their craft, working on a film that would define a generation, unaware that a private tragedy was about to strip away the costumes and the comedy. Just as the production reached its most critical phase, a sudden phone call from thousands of miles away brought the bustling set to a haunting silence for Sally Field. How would she cope with a devastating loss while the world expected her to keep smiling? The day started like any other on the San Francisco set. The crew was moving quickly, the lights were being adjusted, and Robin was likely in the middle of a comedy bit to keep the mood light. But for Sally Field, the world stopped when she was called away to take a private phone call. It was the news that everyone dreads. Her father had passed away. In an instant, the brightly lit movie set felt cold and foreign. The grief was sudden and sharp, a heavy weight that settled into her chest, making it hard to catch her breath. In the high-stakes environment of a major motion picture, the pressure to show must go on is immense. A single day of missed filming can cost a studio hundreds of thousands of dollars, and hundreds of crew members rely on the actors to be present so they can do their jobs. Sally, a consummate professional who had spent decades in the industry, felt this weight immediately. She didn't want to be the reason production stalled. She didn't want to be perceived as difficult or fragile. So, she did what she had been trained to do. She tucked her grief away into a small corner of her heart and walked back onto the set. She tried to blend back into the scene, putting on the face of Miranda Hillard. But grief has a way of leaking out. Her eyes were slightly red, and her usual sharpness was replaced by a hollow, distant look. She felt like an island in a sea of people, surrounded by cameras and costumes that suddenly felt meaningless. She assumed she would just have to suffer in silence, pushing through the scenes until the end of the day when she could finally go home and cry. She didn't realize that Robin Williams, the man currently wearing a wig and a floral dress, was tuned into a frequency that most people ignore. He wasn't just listening to her lines. He was listening to her soul. He saw the subtle shift in her posture and the way her smile didn't quite reach her eyes. As the director climbed into his chair and prepared to call for a rehearsal, Robin Williams did something completely unexpected. Something that broke every rule of a professional movie set. What was he about to do? Robin Williams was often described as a man with thin skin. Not in the sense of being easily offended, but in the sense that he felt the world's emotions more intensely than others. While everyone else was focused on the technical aspects of the next shot, Robin walked over to Sally. He didn't make a joke. He didn't try to distract her with a silly voice. He simply looked at her and asked, "Are you okay?" In that moment, Sally's composure broke. She told him that her father had just died. What happened next became a legendary story of Hollywood's hidden kindness. Robin didn't go back to his trailer to process the news, and he didn't wait for a producer to handle it. He took the situation into his own hands. Using the immense power he held as the star of the film, he approached the director and the production team. He didn't ask if Sally could leave. He informed them that she was leaving. He insisted that the filming schedule be rearranged immediately so that Sally could go home to be with her family and mourn her father properly. This was a rare act of bravery in an industry that often treats actors like machines. By doing this, Robin took the blame for the delay onto his own shoulders. He made sure that Sally didn't have to feel guilty or worry about her job. For the first time, Sally saw the man behind the legendary comedy. She saw a protector. Someone who understood that human life and human emotion are far more important than any movie. Robin's empathy wasn't just a character trait. It was an active force. He used his status to create a safe space for his friend to be vulnerable. This moment changed the way Sally viewed Robin forever. He wasn't just a funny man. He was a person of profound character who could sense when a friend was drowning and knew exactly how to pull them to shore. With Sally safely on her way home, the set was left with a massive hole in the schedule. How would Robin, who was already exhausted by the demands of the film, manage to keep the project moving forward while carrying the emotional weight of his friend's tragedy? While Sally was away dealing with the arrangements for her father, Robin remained on set. The production had to pivot, filming scenes that didn't require her character. This meant more work for Robin, more hours in the makeup chair, and more pressure to perform. But those who were there noticed a subtle change in him. The manic energy was still present when the cameras were rolling, but in the quiet moments between takes, Robin seemed more introspective. Psychologists often talk about the tears of a clown archetype, the idea that many of the world's funniest people use humor as a way to navigate their own internal struggles or high levels of sensitivity. For Robin, empathy wasn't something he could turn off. He felt Sally's grief as if it were a shadow in the room. By helping her, he had acted on his most basic instinct, the need to alleviate the suffering of others. But this kind of deep empathy comes with a psychological cost. It requires a person to be constantly open, absorbing the energy and emotions of everyone around them. The crew saw Robin checking in on everyone more than usual, making sure the atmosphere stayed supportive. It was as if he was trying to protect the entire set from the harshness of the outside world. Sally later reflected on how Robin seemed to have a special antenna for pain. He didn't need to be told when someone was hurting. He could feel it in the air. This sensitivity is what made him such a brilliant actor. He could tap into the deepest parts of the human experience, but it also meant he had no armor of his own. He gave so much of himself to others that one had to wonder what was left for Robin when the day was done. He lived his life with his heart on his sleeve, a beautiful but exhausting way to exist in a world that can often be very cold. When Sally finally returned to the set, she found a different environment waiting for her. But would the bond they formed in that moment of crisis survive the pressures of finishing one of the biggest movies in history? When Sally Field finally walked back onto the Mrs. Doubtfire set, she was a changed woman. She was still grieving, but she felt a profound sense of gratitude and safety that she hadn't expected to find in Hollywood. She went back to work, but the relationship between her and Robin had shifted. It was no longer just two famous actors working together. It was a bond between two people who had shared a moment of raw, unfiltered truth. The first scene they filmed together after her return was filled with a new kind of depth. While the script was still funny, there was a warmth in their eyes that wasn't there before. Robin didn't treat her with kid gloves or act overly somber, which Sally appreciated. He knew that work could be a form of healing, too. He went back to his improvisations and his wild characters, but he always kept an eye on her. He would give her a small nod or a quiet smile between takes, a silent way of saying, "I'm still here, and you're doing great." Sally began to observe Robin's interactions with others through a new lens. She noticed how he spent time talking to the grips, the costume assistants, and the background actors. He treated everyone with the same level of respect and interest. She realized that his act of kindness toward her wasn't an isolated incident. It was his way of life. He was a man who truly believed that every person deserved to be seen and heard. This realization was both inspiring and a little bit frightening to Sally. She saw how much of himself he poured into every interaction, and she wondered how anyone could sustain that level of emotional output. The filming process became a lesson in humanity for her. She learned that even in the most stressful environments, there is always room for compassion, provided someone is brave enough to lead the way. The movie eventually finished filming and became a massive hit, but the story of what Robin did for Sally remained a secret for many years. Why did it take so long for this story to come to light? Mrs. Doubtfire was released to critical acclaim and became one of the highest-grossing films of the year. Audiences around the world fell in love with the story of a father's devotion, never knowing about the real-life devotion that had taken place behind the scenes. For decades, Sally Field kept the story of Robin's kindness to herself. It was a private treasure, a memory that she held close to her heart as she watched Robin's career continue to soar. It wasn't until many years later, after Robin had passed away, that Sally decided to share the story. She realized that the world had a very specific image of Robin Williams, the high-energy comedian, the voice of the genie, the man who could make anyone laugh. But Sally wanted people to know the man who could make someone feel safe. She wanted to add a chapter to his legacy that wasn't about his talent, but about his soul. By speaking out, she helped shift the public conversation about Robin. Instead of focusing solely on the tragedy of his end, she highlighted the beauty of his life. She spoke about how his kindness was a choice, a conscious decision to put someone else's needs above his own. In the world of psychology, this is known as prosocial behavior, and it is often found in individuals with high levels of emotional intelligence. Robin didn't just feel empathy, he acted on it. Sally's story helped fans understand that Robin's genius wasn't just in his brain. It was in his heart. He was a man who understood that the smallest gesture, a quiet question, a firm word to a director, a moment of protection, could change someone's life forever. Her revelation became a gift to his fans, a way to remember him as a hero not just on the screen, but in the quiet, unscripted moments of real life. Even with this beautiful story shared, a deeper question remains. What does Robin's life and Sally's memory tell us about the hidden struggles of those who give the most to the world? Today, when Sally Field speaks about Robin Williams, her voice is filled with a mixture of reverence and love. She describes him as a sensitive, beautiful soul, who was perhaps too good for the world he lived in. Looking back, she sees that his behavior on the set of Mrs. Doubtfire was the ultimate performance of his life. Not because it was fake, but because it was the most honest thing he ever did. He stepped out of the spotlight to shine a light on someone else. The story of Sally and Robin is a powerful reminder of the empathy paradox. Sometimes, the people who are the most capable of bringing joy to millions are the ones who feel the weight of sadness most deeply. Robin's ability to sense Sally's grief was a superpower, but it was also a burden. It required him to be constantly vulnerable, constantly open to the pain of others. Sally's memories serve as a call to action for all of us. She encourages us to look closer at the people in our lives, especially the ones who are always making us laugh, always checking in on us, and always appearing strong. Robin Williams' final transformation wasn't into a character on a screen, but into a symbol of human kindness. Sally's story ensures that he is remembered for his character as much as his comedy. It teaches us that empathy is not just a feeling, but a series of small, brave actions. Whether it's standing up for a friend at work or simply asking, "Are you okay?" When we see someone struggling, We all have the power to carry on Robin's legacy. As we watch the scenes of Mrs. Doubtfire today, we can see it differently. We can see the laughter, yes, but we can also see the profound love that existed behind the camera. Sally Field's story is a testament to the fact that while fame is fleeting and movies may age, the way we treat each other in our darkest moments is what truly lasts. It invites us to be a little more like Robin, to be a little more sensitive, a little more protective, and a lot more kind. As the credits roll on this story, we are left with a final thought. In a world where you can be anything, will you choose to be the person who notices when a friend is hurting? And how might that one small choice change a life forever?